camera speeding, and let's go into the.
Do I look at you,
Go ahead,
right?
close the door.
Okay.
Yes, and close the door. Yes, go ahead. Okay. All right. Go ahead. Take it away.
Tell me your names and titles at the agency you work with.
Okay. My name is Zara Bashir, and I'm a community health worker at WellShare International.
Tell me more about the tobacco-free communities programs you are working on.
So the tobacco-free community program that I'm working on is a class called WellShare Wellness. Sorry, we kind of planned something? Can I stop really quick, or
Yeah,
it
go
doesn't
ahead,
matter?
yeah.
Go
Okay.
ahead.
We kind of planned to
Yeah,
say
I will
something.
do that.
So does it matter if I just start out like that then?
I can do it because you'll do more.
So how can I answer that question?
So
Because
what
that's
was
the
That's
program
okay.
we're working
you
on.
You can answer again. So that's the purpose is we're asking actually similar questions to both.
Oh, okay.
And then we'll cut the back
It's the same
the
question.
answer
Yes,
out
answer
of it.
whatever
Yeah.
it is.
Oh, okay.
So don't worry about if you speak on the part he's supposed to do. He may speak the same thing, and then we will kind of intercut with all different questions, so we have that covered.
All right, that makes sense.
So, okay.
Okay.
Tell
Yeah.
me more about tobacco-free communities program.
Okay, so the tobacco-free communities program that I work on at WellShare is a class called WellShare Wellness at a school called Metro Schools, which is where we're at right now. And basically what we do is we start the program by teaching the students about healthy eating, all the basics of health and wellness. So healthy eating, what good eating is, what bad eating is, what is portion control. We teach them about exercise, their bodies, what is exercise good for, specific organs and, their functions and everything like that. And so that's what we start the class off with, because what we want to do is tell them, once we start talking about tobacco use and how bad it is for you, we want them to have that understanding of how tobacco use can reverse the effects of, all of the good lifestyle changes that you can really make with, health and wellness. So with specific tobacco curriculum that we use is the one that was produced by the Minnesota Association for Non-Smokers. I believe I said that right. And it's about an 8-week curriculum specifically produced for teens in Minnesota for the prevention of tobacco use. So it goes through all the essentials: what is tobacco, what are in cigarettes, what are the different types of tobacco, all the different types of chemicals. We use multiple modes of education, like we have open discussions. We use PowerPoints when we want to get, straight facts across. We do a lot of different activities. For example, we just did a photo voice project this past semester with our students, and photo voice basically just is a project where they put a message to a photo. And obviously it was surrounding tobacco use, and it was after we finished the curriculum with them. So they had all of the knowledge and all of the information they needed in order for them to really see the impact of tobacco use in their immediate community. So we gave them cameras, and they went around their neighborhoods and their schools and wherever, the parks and whatnot. And they, took evidence of how much tobacco is affecting their specific communities and how close it hits to home. So that's something, a lot of different projects like that we do with them.
Can you talk a little bit more about the different photos? Is anything stands out from their photos for you?
Yeah, so we had an exhibit for them, and so a lot of the teachers were able to see them. But for me, what stood out was how many cigarette butts they found, these students. Like almost every single student that took a picture found cigarette butts on the floor. And that really stood out to me because, they were talking about it. They were like, wow, like not only, it really is everywhere, and we also mentioned how it's bad for the environment. And, we don't only talk about your body and how it affects your body, we also talk about how it affects the environment and everything like that. So they're really able to see that, and that's something that stood out for me during that specific exhibit.
how do you see that community needs? Why Somali community having this tobacco-free communities program?
I would say it's essential. We have a very high prevalence rate, as do a lot of, African communities. It's something that is in our history. It's back in Somalia before the Civil War. There was heavy use of tobacco, so it's not something new that's in our community. So this kind of active fight against it that the Tobacco Free Community Grant is allowing us to kind of have is essential, because there still is this perception and this attitude in our community that there's not a huge effect because due to tobacco use. And one thing I want to mention is hookah. Hookah is a water pipe, and it's not originally part of the Somali culture, but we're pretty heavily influenced by Middle Eastern culture. And it's a water pipe, and you put flavored tobacco in it, which is now I believe illegal in Minneapolis. But yeah, and it's heavily used among our youth, our Somali youth, the East African youth in general, Oromos, Ethiopians, Eritreans, heavily used. And so we really try to put a focus on that during our tobacco curriculum education, where we tell them, because there's this perception that it's healthier than cigarettes. And there's actually this huge perception that it's much healthier than cigarette use. And so, people sit there for hours and they smoke, and they don't really realize, hey, you're really putting a lot more chemicals in your body than you think. So, yeah, there's just a lot of misconceptions in our community that we need to tackle and reverse.
Do you do any assessment data to support that, or what kind of observations you may have? They want to really hope to build that assessment, community education, community engagement, and to policy change.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can give me some background information about assessment
Mm-hmm.
level, what do you see and what kind of effort from Wellshare has been doing?
So I just need some clarification. Do you want me to specifically talk about our Wellshare Wellness class assessment for that, or in general?
In general, for the community
For the-
assessment.
Observation is one of the
Just-
words that she used.
Oh,
We can talk
just
about-
use that. Okay.
And then we can add
Yeah,
two
I
numbers
can
later.
answer that question later, because
Yeah.
we've done a lot of other work on assessment.
You can talk about the observation part right now, maybe.
Like observation of.
We'll ask the same question for everyone. So
Okay.
if you didn't provide a lot of information, that would be fine. So other partners will cover for you. So
Could you repeat that one more time for me?
Sure.
Thank you.
we will hope to get the assessment data
Okay.
from the community, Somali community in general.
Mm.
Would you be able to provide some?
Yeah, we can definitely provide assessment data. Every time I go out and I do outreach, I track what resources I give out. I track, if those resources were policy related, if those resources were hookah related, if they're related to housing, all of that thing. So we do that type of assessment. Observation wise, every time I go to the same areas, let's say I go to the places I go to the most, I would say, when I'm doing tobacco outreach are the Somali malls, because you really do have a huge amount of people going in and out that you can really reach, a great audience that you can really reach, and that is our target audience. So if I go there and I go to the stores, the same couple stores, there's consistency somehow, and through that I can see I can do some kind of personal assessment where I see the store managers are more and more susceptible every time I go to them to getting my resources and saying oh yeah, please give me more, because their people want them, so I mean, right now that's the most, I guess that's the most observations that I've seen like out in the field. Yeah.
Talk a little bit more about your outreach process. I think that's very interesting. You targeting the Somali Mall. Tell me a little bit more of those culturally specific outreach you have been doing.
Okay, yeah, definitely. That's all we do at WellShare is culturally specific targeted outreach. I mean, they're not all targeted. There's like general outreach as well. But me specifically, the techniques I like to use, because I feel like young Somalis connect with me more because I'm also a young Somali and I grew up here just like them. And, you know, I'm very well aware of how normalized tobacco use is in our community. And so what I like to do is I like to go to the coffee shops where Somalis, you know, young Somalis hang out. And when I go to these malls, I like to go to like the henna shops or the hair salons because that's where I really come across a lot of young people. I also very recently actually went to an MUA. I don't know if you know what that is, a makeup artist, where they do professional makeup and they do bridal shower parties a lot. And you see like hookah use during, because they take hours to go through that process, and so people just like pass time smoking hookah. And so it's my first time I did it, but it was very successful, and I was able to like really connect, like reach a population that you can't just reach on the street or at a health fair or things like that. So yeah, my outreach is pretty specific and pretty targeted. We usually stay in Minneapolis because that's where there's a high population of Somalis. But I also go to Burnsville and like those western suburbs, Burnsville, Brooklyn Park, because there's mosques there, and there's like Eden Prairie, there's like pretty large mosques. So that's another place that we do outreach at, are the mosques, because, you know, just dropping off resources is enough to get people thinking. And at this point, that's what we want to do, is to get them thinking and changing their mind and like really understanding, like, you know, what has been ingrained in our culture, that you know, this is not that huge of a problem, that needs to change. Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit what kind of community assets you can pull out from the Somali community to support this type of tobacco-free programming?
Somali people they respect their leaders a lot, and you see this a lot with a lot of other communities, but they respect their community leaders a lot. And so that's one thing we're using at WellShare, our community leaders, and getting them to try to reach out to people that are, like, you know, more susceptible to listening to them. So that's one thing. Can you ask that question one more time?
Sure. Just community assets. So you talk about the leader,
yeah.
respecting leaders.
Yeah.
Is family is a big issue, or is a big asset for them, or friendships is a big asset, or
religion.
Yeah, religion was another good
Yeah.
asset. So if you can give me maybe 3 community assets you see in the community can help you to become a protective factor for them.
Okay, so I just mentioned
To respect the leader.
the respecting of the community leaders, the religion. So I'll talk about that a little bit. In Islam, anything that harms your body is forbidden, and so that is something that we really use as a tool to get people to understand that, you know, not only is this not in our culture, but if you respect your religion like you say you do, and if you really love your religion like you say you do, then you wouldn't want to harm your body, because that's what God said. So yeah, that's definitely something that is very effective, we've seen, and we're starting to incorporate more into our outreach efforts. One more thing, we're trying, because I work a lot of my time with youth, the youth, they have a lot of influence on each other. And so digging into that peer influence and that social media influence, and the Somali community, Somali youth, millennial community has a very, very strong social media presence, and they're connected throughout the world, the diaspora. And so when, you know, people that are like famous or whatever on Snapchat or Instagram are using hookah, and, you know, they're, you know, using tobacco products or e-cigarettes or whatever, Juuls, and other youth see that, then they're going to be obviously more influenced. So using that fact basically as a tool is also very helpful in the Somali community, because then we can really have our peers understand how hard it is to, or understand that, like, the pressures of peer influences. And once they understand that peer influences don't dictate, you know, what you as an individual does with your body, like, once we, you know, or hopefully continuously push that thought into their heads, then, you know, we can definitely use that as a very effective tool and for Somalis.
Can you make me a summary sentence? You mentioned 3 good community assets.
Yeah.
Can you tie that together in a conclusion sentence for me?
Yeah. Okay. Community leaders, religion, peer influences. Okay.
Positive peer.
Positive peer influences. Okay. And then what was the...
Community assets.
Okay. So, okay.
For Somali communities, we
Okay.
have a lot of assets.
Okay.
And I believe there's 3.
Okay. That's my hijab. For Somali communities, okay, maybe once they close the door, doesn't matter. For Somali communities, we have a lot of assets that are helpful in the fight against tobacco use. One of those assets is using community leaders, because they are very well respected in the Somali community. Another one of those assets is using, oh my God, I forgot.
Religion. You're doing so well.
Okay.
That opening sentence is strong. Keep that
Okay.
one.
What was it again? No, I'm just kidding. Okay, community, okay. In the Somali community.
We have a lot of assets.
Yes. Community leaders, religion, peer, okay. Positive. In the Somali community, we have a lot of community assets that we use in the fight against tobacco use. One of those community assets is the use of community leaders, because they're very well respected in our community. A second asset would be using the religion, because it is not, anything that harms your body is not permitted in Islam. And so tobacco use obviously harms your body. The third asset that we use in the Somali community, especially with youth, are the positive peer influences, because we know that peer influences exist, and if we keep pushing positive peer influences, then we can reach our goals.
Tell me a successful story. Almost done.
Nerves.
Positive. Give me paint a picture for me. What would be success look like for you?
Okay. Success for me personally, I'm a millennial, so I know that what is very important to me is having a tobacco-free generation for the next generation. And so success to me is seeing a tobacco-free generation for our next youth. And also being able to change this perception that the Somali community has, that's been ingrained in their minds for so long now, that tobacco really doesn't have much of an effect on your body. And even the ones that do understand that they have it has an effect on you, a very negative effect on you, they don't think about it as much. You know, it's not a huge factor. So success for me is seeing those 2 major changes: a young generation that is tobacco free, and an older generation that understands the importance of being tobacco free.
Tell me any personal story you may have throughout the interaction with the youth. Any individual story, any impact on on you, or particularly so make you so passionate to work on this field, or other cases you see among the youth you serve?
Yeah. One of the places that we work at are one of the one of the collaborations that we have is with the Hennepin County Library, and we go there once a week during the academic year. And I get to see a lot of different youth come through because, you know, they come consistently, but you see a lot of different faces. And I'll always forget this one boy, where, one of the sessions where we were talking about, it was one of those like basic, you know, what are the chemicals in tobacco, you know, what it does to your body, and all those basic conversations. And he said, I didn't know. I'm always around my cousins, I'm always around my uncles, and they're always smoking. And he himself was, you know, I think he was like 14 or 15, and he didn't smoke tobacco, but he was always around it, and he didn't understand how secondhand smoke can affect him at such a young age. And he was already seeing, you know, some of the effects of secondhand smoke. And so that really, and it was one of, you know, it was beginning of, you know, my employment at WellShare, and it was one of the first like really like deep kind of interactions I had with a student, and that's when I realized like why this work is so important and why it's so needed. Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the impacts you have for the Metro students. I know you guys did the surveys and all that. Could you share with me some of the impact you created for these Metro students?
Yeah. Well, I know that we had a great impact because, well, we could just see it visually. Our students, every time we came once a week, and every time we come, they are very excited to see us. They ask us, okay, what are we going to learn about today? You know, so I know that we had, from just like an observation point of view, I know we had a great impact. But also we do satisfaction surveys, and they're, we can talk about that. Audrey can talk about that later, but yeah, we do satisfaction surveys, and they're pretty high up there when it comes to students having good mentors. Sorry, I have to check with Abdi on this.
That's
because
okay.
he's.
What happened?
Is the satisfaction surveys for Metro schools too, or is that just the evaluation?
For TYA.
It's just TYA only. Okay.
You can skip anything that is also.
Yeah.
Okay, no,
Can I
okay.
skip
I will
that?
ask him that.
Yeah, can you ask him that?
Okay.
Thank you.
So, any other things you want to add before we get to your closing statement? Okay, good.
Unless
Let's
you
do
want me
it.
to add anything, Laura. Okay, unless you want me to add anything.
No, they will add by themselves.
That's
So.
okay.
No, you did well. You did well.
Okay.
So, let's do the closing statements.
Can you
Look at
hold
the-
it?
Yeah.
For me?
Can we hold the
Yeah.
signs
Oh.
and then we'll do a.
Do you want to read quickly?
Huh. Yeah, I can read it from here.
See you.
Yeah.
This is the
I
closest
never
thing, right?
know how this is doing.
Okay.
Now I finally
I
know
It's a lot of work.
how to keep the hijab.
Yeah.
Now I
You have to
know.
like tuck it in for like
I
a
know.
meter.
I just feel like, yeah, how could you?
Yeah, hold it in
so
place.
Yeah, it's so neat.
Okay.
Look straight this way. You could look at the paper. Why don't you look at the paper so it looks like?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Put it a little closer to the camera. Why don't you look almost like you're looking right at the camera? It's like that. Okay. Can you still see it?
I can see it now.
Okay. All right. Give it a try.
Through the Tobacco Free Communities Grant, we at WellShare International will educate East Africans and engage the community to actively change their attitudes and practices for a tobacco-free lifestyle.
Cut. That was beautiful. Did you want to do one more time?
Yep.
We'll just look right at the
Slow
camera.
down a little bit and really talk to the camera. So
Okay.
Don't. It seems like you're reading. So
Okay.
try to stop and then
Okay.
make it more natural.
All right.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready, if you can look right at the camera if you can. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Can I like glance a little bit?
Yeah, you can glance back at the camera.
Okay.
Yeah, just don't make it too obvious. And when you end, just end looking at the camera.
Okay.
Nice and slow.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Through the Tobacco Free Communities Grant, we at WellShare International will educate East Africans and engage the community to actively change their
Almost.
Ah!
That was a perfect start, though.
That is,
Sorry, we're
that
doing-
is,
That was a perfect start.
Goodness, okay. Through the Tobacco Free Communities Grant, we at Wellshare International will educate East Africans and engage the community to actively change their attitudes and practices for a
That was almost there. You're almost here. You're this close to finishing. Okay, deep breath. Nice and slow. Go ahead.
Through the Tobacco Free Communities Grant, we at Wellshare International will educate East Africans and engage their community to actively change their attitudes and practices towards a tobacco-free lifestyle.
Cut. Beautiful.
Yay!